The city of Silverbrook knew one name better than any other: Victoria Hayes, the brilliant CEO who had built a billion-dollar empire before turning 35. Powerful, intelligent, and admired by millions, Victoria had everything money could buy except one thing: trust. Years earlier, a painful betrayal had shattered her belief in love. Since then, she had devoted her life to raising her 8-year-old son, Ethan, while leading her company to unimaginable success. Reporters constantly asked when she would marry again, but Victoria always gave the same answer: "I will only marry the men my son chooses." Most people laughed, thinking it was a clever way to avoid the question. But Victoria meant every word. Ethan was the center of her world, and she trusted his heart more than any business advisor or wealthy suitor. Over the years, countless rich and influential men tried to win her affection. Some sent expensive gifts, others planned extravagant surprises, but Ethan never liked any of them. He would politely shake his head and say, "Not him, Mom." Victoria never argued. Then, on a rainy afternoon that seemed completely ordinary, fate quietly began writing a story no one could have imagined. Across town lived Daniel Carter, a hard-working single father who spent his days repairing construction equipment and his nights helping his young daughter with homework. Life had not been easy for Daniel. After losing his wife years earlier, he struggled to balance work, parenting, and endless bills. Yet despite every hardship, he remained kind, humble, and honest. People respected him because he never complained. One morning, while driving home after a long shift, Daniel noticed a young boy standing alone near a busy intersection during a heavy rainstorm. Cars rushed past as the frightened child looked around desperately. Without hesitation, Daniel pulled over, grabbed an umbrella, and ran toward him. To his surprise, the boy was Ethan Hayes. The child had become separated from his security team after wandering away from a charity event. Daniel stayed with him until help arrived, making jokes to keep him calm. Ethan immediately liked him. Unlike the wealthy men he had met before, Daniel treated him like a normal kid instead of a ticket to his mother's fortune. Before leaving, Daniel gave Ethan a small toy airplane he had been carrying to fix for his daughter. "Every pilot needs courage," he said with a smile. Ethan never forgot those words. Over the next few weeks, fate kept bringing them together. They met at a community park, a charity fundraiser, and even a local bookstore. Each time, Daniel showed the same kindness and humility. He never knew Ethan was the son of the famous CEO because he rarely followed celebrity news. Ethan was fascinated. Here was a man who worked hard, cared for his family, and never tried to impress anyone. One evening, Ethan asked his mother if she believed heroes existed. Victoria smiled and answered, "Of course they do." Ethan nodded thoughtfully and whispered, "I think I met one." Months later, Victoria hosted the grandest charity gala in the city. Business leaders, celebrities, politicians, and investors filled a magnificent ballroom decorated with crystal chandeliers and golden lights. The event was expected to raise millions for children's education programs. Victoria stood on stage thanking everyone for attending when Ethan suddenly disappeared from his seat. Security personnel began searching immediately, but before anyone could react, the young boy walked confidently through the crowd. Hundreds of eyes followed him. Guests exchanged curious glances as Ethan crossed the ballroom. Then he stopped in front of a man standing quietly near the back of the room. It was Daniel, who had been invited by a community organization because of his volunteer work. Confused, Daniel looked around, wondering if the child was talking to someone else. Instead, Ethan reached forward, grabbed Daniel's hand firmly, and turned toward his mother. The entire ballroom fell silent. "Mom," Ethan said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "this is the man I choose." Gasps echoed throughout the hall. Reporters lowered their cameras in shock. Investors stared in disbelief. Daniel looked as though the ground had vanished beneath his feet. Victoria froze. For a moment, the powerful CEO who never lost her composure had no idea what to say. Memories flooded her mind, the promise she had repeated for years, the countless interviews, and every time she had told the world she would trust her son's choice. The room waited for her response. Daniel gently knelt beside Ethan and whispered, "Buddy, I think there's been a misunderstanding." But Ethan shook his head. "No misunderstanding. You're kind. You help people when nobody is watching. You love your family. You never pretend to be someone you're not." Mom deserves someone like that. Tears formed in Victoria's eyes. No billionaire had ever impressed her as much as those simple words. For the first time in years, she saw a man who wasn't chasing her wealth or status. Daniel looked embarrassed by all the attention, yet he remained calm and respectful. After the gala ended, Victoria asked Daniel if he would join her and Ethan for dinner. Their conversation lasted hours. They talked about family, challenges, dreams, and values. Daniel never once mentioned money or business. Instead, he spoke proudly about raising his daughter and helping his community. Weeks turned into months as their friendship grew. Slowly, trust replaced fear. Laughter replaced loneliness. Ethan watched happily as his mother smiled more often than she had in years. Eventually, Daniel and Victoria realized they had fallen in love, not because of wealth, power, or appearances, but because of honesty, respect, and kindness. 1 year after the unforgettable gala, family and friends gathered in a beautiful garden overlooking the city. As Victoria walked down the aisle, Ethan stood beside Daniel with the biggest smile anyone had ever seen. When the ceremony ended, the boy hugged them both and whispered, "I told you he was the right one." Everyone laughed through happy tears. The story spread across the country, inspiring millions. People realized that true character matters more than status, and that genuine love often appears where no one expects it. Victoria's promise had seemed impossible, but her son's pure heart had seen what everyone else overlooked. Sometimes the best choices come from those who judge people not by what they own, but by who they are. And that is how a little boy changed 3 lives forever and proved that kindness remains the greatest treasure of all. If you enjoyed this heartwarming story, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional and inspiring stories every week.